All right, well, welcome and good morning. I'm glad all of you could join us today for our candidate forum with Missouri State Representative Doug Beck and Dr. David Lenihan. Both candidates are running in the November 3rd election to represent the 1st Senate District of Missouri. I'm Austin Walker, Vice President of Public Policy at the St. Louis Regional Chamber. I'd first like to thank Representative Beck and Dr. Lenihan for taking time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. I also want to thank their professional staff for their hard work in planning this forum. And one final thank you to the St. Louis Regional Chamber's public policy sponsors for 2020, whose contributions really support our programming throughout the year. Before we start, I want to lay out how the candidate forum will work. I want to make clear what our forum is and what it isn't. Our candidate forum provides the opportunity for both candidates to talk about some of the most pressing issues facing the business community and how they might handle those issues as representatives of the 1st Senate District. Our forum is not a debate and certainly not a place to attack your opponent. Instead, we want to hear each candidate's ideas and policies that'll help drive our region forward. Both candidates have agreed to the following forum rules. Representative Beck will provide the first opening statement, followed by Dr. Lenihan. Dr. Lenihan will then proceed to answer the first question first, then questions will alternate between candidates in a snake-like fashion. For example, Dr. Lenihan will go first on the first question, then Representative Beck will answer the first question and answer the second question back to back. The order will proceed until closing statements are done. Both campaigns have agreed to the aforementioned order and to the closing statement order. Dr. Lenihan first and Representative Beck second. The questions were agreed upon beforehand and both candidates will receive the same amount of time to answer each question. There are 8 questions and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. I want to again remind both candidates that our members are here to listen to your answers to their most pressing questions. 2020 has brought significant challenges for our regional business community, including a pandemic that has shut the doors of many of our region's businesses and civil unrest that has shed light on some of the most pressing issues that our business community is uniquely positioned to help address. We look forward to hearing both candidates' answers to these issues and many more in our forum. Each campaign has provided a short bio for introduction, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the representative of the 92nd District of Missouri, Doug Beck. Doug Beck currently serves as the state representative for House District 92. Which covers much of unincorporated St. Louis County. He is South St. Louis County. He is ranking minority member for both Economic Development and Workforce Development Committees in the House. In addition to his service in the legislature, Doug was the director of the Afton School Board, a position he held for 9 years, including 2 years as president. During his tenure on the Afton School Board, Doug worked to expand early childhood education, culminating in the building of a new early childhood center and to increase opportunities in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics field, STEM. The district is now recognized as the top performer in the state. Doug is a 34-year member of the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 562 and was elected this year as president of the Missouri Building and Construction Trades Council. Please welcome Representative Beck. Representative Beck, the floor is yours for opening statement.
Well, thank you, Austin, and thank you to the Chamber for having me here today. And thank you to Mr. Lenihan for being here in this forum. The opening remarks, I've kind of changed over time as we look at what's going on around us. So I think for me, everything that we're talking about today is going to have to be wrapped around COVID and the pandemic that we are facing currently. As we look around today and the policies that have been in the state during this pandemic for the last 7 months, we haven't learned anything. It seems like we have not learned anything from the 7 months. We've watched other states go through this. We should have been learning what to do to be able to stem what's going on, but we haven't. We don't have a uniform mask requirement throughout the state, and that is hurting us. We have a 20% positivity rate on counties outside of St. Louis County, and that's troublesome. Just as of yesterday, our ICUs are becoming overrun by people coming from outstate. And the reason why that is happening is the Republican legislature and Republican majority has failed to expand Medicaid. And we have a lot of our rural hospitals that have closed over this time. And now those folks have nowhere to go, and they're airlifting them here and they're bringing them here to St. Louis. These are troubling signs. And if we're going to talk about any type of economic recovery, we have to be able to get this virus under control. And I think that has to be the overreaching message here that we have. When I first started this campaign, it wasn't going to be about this, but this is what it's come to. Campaigning during this has been different. It's been changed. As I talk to people, this is their concern. Is like, when am I going to be able to see my grandkids? When am I going to be able to hold my grandkids? And things of that nature, and people losing their jobs and and running out of unemployment. These are super concerns in our area, and we need to get this under control so we can move forward in in other areas of the economy. So without doing that, that has to happen. So that's what this has changed for me. So.
Thank you, Representative. I really appreciate your opening statement, and we look forward to hearing more from you during our question and answer segment. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. David Lenihan. Dr. David Lenihan.
Oh, thank you. No, it's fine.
Sorry, Dr. Lenihan. The screen just caught up. I wanted to introduce you. Dr. David Lenihan has overcome obstacles throughout his entire life by turning them into opportunities. At a young age, David had a spinal injury that threatened to ruin his life. He took this challenge and decided to pursue medicine, working hard to pay for his own education at Palmer College of Chiropractic. Earning his PhD in peripheral neurosurgery from the University of Edinburgh, David returned to the United States as a research associate at Washington University in St. Louis, then as the dean at Toros Medical School in Harlem, New York, one of the largest medical schools in the United States. While he served as dean, he pursued a law degree and flew home multiple times a week to St. Louis to coach both of his sons' football teams. David moved on from Toro College and University System and used his entrepreneurial spirit to create Tiber Health, a global network of innovative medical universities. He soon bought Ponce Health Sciences University, where he raised the board pass rate from 62% to 93%, while increasing medical degree applications by 30.4%. Recently, has begun the process of building an $82 million medical school. In St. Louis, they'll create over 483 permanent jobs and 165 construction jobs. David's family has deep roots in South St. Louis County community, and he's married to his wife, Karen, a graduate of Oakville High School. And they have two sons, Sean, who's at Rockhurst University, and Connor, who attends the Royal College of Surgeons. He has dedicated his life to challenging himself, his students, and the community to create better opportunities. In Jefferson City, he'll challenge his colleagues to find solutions to improve our schools, healthcare system, and remove obstacles to creating higher paying jobs for Missourians. Please welcome Dr. David Lenihan. Dr. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Austin. And thanks to Representative Beck for being here. I do appreciate this type of forum. It gives us an opportunity to discuss what we want to do for Missouri and what game plan each of us are going to be able to provide. A little introduction about myself. I'm Dr. Lenihan. We all know that we're running for the Missouri First Senate. I want to also thank the Missouri Chamber of Commerce for endorsing me last night. I think that was a big endorsement on what we're trying to do to bring jobs and help the economy in the state. A little bit of introduction. October is a great month for me. This October, I was married 26 years to my wife, Karen, and my younger son had his birthday yesterday. He's 21 years old and is in Ireland. So we've been in the community here a long time. I have two boys. They're 22 and 21. The first son, well, both of them went to Queen of All Saints, just down on Telegraph. And then my older son, or excuse me, both boys went to Queen of All Saints, and then they went to CBC. My older son went to Rockhurst, where he graduated with a degree in biochemistry and physics, and was going to be going to medical school, but this COVID situation has thrown a little bit of a spanner into that. So he's taking a year off and going to be going to school next year. My 21-year-old, my younger one, is at the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin, and he's in his third year of medical school there, and also playing rugby in Ireland. Personally, I went to Illinois Wesleyan University and received a degree in mathematics and biology. And after that, my wife and I moved to Scotland. When we lived in Scotland, we really didn't have any money. I don't know if you know what physicians in Scotland or the UK make, but it's not very much money when they're a resident. And we could barely afford heat in the place we were at. I don't know if you've ever experienced a place without heat in the winter, but it's tough. And I can tell you there were some cold nights in Scotland that my wife and I were trying to figure out, me studying in the library every day for a long period of time. But eventually we got that straightened out. And as Austin said, I earned my PhDs in neurosurgery and electrophysiology. And I also got my MBA from the Cambridge University in the UK. So moved back.
Dr. Lenihan.
Yep.
I appreciate that. I want to keep it to 2 minutes, but I also wanted, to thank you for your opening statement. We look forward to hearing more from you in the questions and answer segment, which starts right now. And the first one, Dr. Lenihan, goes to you. What qualifies you to run for Senate District 1?
Well, I think there's four things that really qualify for me running. It's education, jobs, healthcare, and mental health. I've been doing these things for 20 years now and have a lot of experience in how to work with these. When we look at the Missouri budget, It's $35 billion. Almost 55% of that $35 billion is allocated to education and healthcare. These are topics that are extremely complex and significant. And when you make a mistake, if you do something wrong or you have a piece of legislation that's just not right, it can affect hundreds of millions of dollars of our hard-earned money. And we need to make sure that we elect people that understand how to be able to figure that stuff out. Healthcare in particular is $8.8 billion and almost 25% of our budget. And with Medicaid expansion, whether or not you were for it or against it, it's here and it's going to happen. There's parts of that Medicaid expansion that deal with the taxes hospitals pay. That's called an FRA tax. How money's allocated to people that don't have money. That's called dish payment. How we train our doctors. How we make sure that our doctors are paid at a reasonable rate. All that stuff gets piled into this calculation. And if you don't fully understand that, and this is going to be a legislative issue, if you don't fully understand that, we're not going to be able to get all that money from the federal government that we deserve with the Medicaid expansion. And if we don't do it just right, it also will affect our general revenue. There are solutions to make sure that it doesn't impact our general revenue. We can take that money and use it to buy new MRIs. We can buy new PPE equipment. We can buy ventilators. If you use it to buy capital expenditures, things that are assets, you can then reapply to the COVID CARES Act and get that money back so you're not drawing money out of the general revenue fund. And the third thing I think it's important for healthcare is I support a constitutional amendment for pre-existing conditions. You heard I had a spinal cord injury. I had a son that had a traumatic brain injury at birth. I understand why, personally, why these things are important. The second thing is jobs and how do we invest.
Actually cut you off there. Sorry, Dr. Lenihan. That was 2 minutes. Sorry, we'll have time in the next one. So same question goes to Representative Beck. What qualifies you to be the next senator from the first?
So I was born and raised in South County, went to Lindbergh School District, graduated from Lindbergh High School. I have went to Merrimack Community College, became a pipe fitter, went through apprenticeship. And I've been in this area my entire life, except for about 5 years when we first got married. We lived in South St. Louis City. And during that time, I was on the Afton School Board. And we did so many good things when we were there. We, first off, one of my campaign promises was to expand early childhood and build an early childhood center, and we did that, and we've accomplished that. We implemented Project Lead the Way, which is a biomedical and engineering strand, pre-K through 12 in the school district. We also introduced an APS program. It was APS originally, now it's called CAPS, that takes our seniors and embeds them in businesses around the area and kind of gives them an idea of what it's going to be like later on. And when I first got there, our seniors were getting about $1 million in scholarships. And when I left, they were getting $10 million in scholarships. And I think that's something to be said about that. We also, just this last year, Afton High School is ranked number 9 in the state. And those are big things. And I think it shows that I have success and I'm able to get things done. I've also been involved with food insecurity now since 2009, for sure. Been doing food drives, working with the Afton Food Pantry and other areas, Feed My People and things of that nature. And I think that is very important. It's something that's growing in this area, unfortunately, and it was growing even before the pandemic hit. So that's a concern for me, and that's another issue I would like to look at. And then for me, public office has never been an end goal for me. You know, it was to help out families like my own with those kitchen table issues that they face. You know, people today are facing unemployment. I know what it's like to be unemployed. I've been unemployed. I understand when you have to make cuts and when you have to, when you have to decide if you're going to get medication or not, or worried about your health care expiring or things of that nature. So I know what it's like these people are dealing with in the first district.
Thank you, Representative. And so the second question goes to you as well. Do you think Missouri, our region, and Senate District 1 are headed in the right direction? If so, why? And if not, what would you do differently?
Again, I'll have to start with COVID. I don't think we're headed in the right direction. I think the county and the city have done a pretty good job with this. But the problem is this virus doesn't know boundary lines. It doesn't know county lines. It doesn't know city lines. And when you have everybody surrounding us not wanting to do a mask mandate, and you have businesses out in those areas begging counties and cities to do one because our governor won't step up and do it, that's a problem. People don't feel safe and they won't go into these businesses. And then you have pushback from consumers that go in there, and when a business is trying to enforce something. Years ago, we had the, no shirt, no shoes, no service. Well, this is no different than that. This is a health issue, and it's something that we really need to work on. So, in order for us to go forward, I think this again has to be addressed, and I'm going to be talking about this throughout this these entire questions. But once the CDC has also labeled us a red zone, and they've asked us to follow certain recommendations. The White House has come down twice and said, please do a mask mandate. We haven't done it, and that's frustrating. So we have so much on our plate, from increasing workforce development, infrastructure improvements, to fully funding our schools. But before we can get back to these pressing issues, we have to deal with COVID. Now, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time, absolutely. But we need to look at this thing as an approach, and we need to have a plan to go forward. And I don't see one. I haven't seen one. And that, quite frankly, scares me.
Representative, thank you. Dr. Lenihan, the question goes to you. Do you think Missouri, our region, and Senate District 1 are headed in the right direction? If so, why? And if not, what would you do differently?
I think pre-COVID, Missouri was definitely headed in the right direction. I think that's something everyone can agree. Now it comes to what are we doing after this situation? And I do agree with the mask. We need to wear masks. We need to follow what the science actually says, but we cannot destroy our economy. And I do think right now that the ship has been stabilized a little bit, and yes, the cases are increasing, but the mortality rate has actually stabilized. So people are surviving it, and we know how to deal with it. Now that we got a grip on that aspect, we need to get jobs back to the community. We need to talk about how we're going to transform our education to make it better, bringing in new ideas, not the same old stuff, but bring in things like Teachers Academy to teach faculty how to use flipped classroom, how to use modalities like we're using right now. How do we do all that stuff? And that's very important. And why do I think Missouri's been heading in the right direction now post-COVID? Is because you have to look at the numbers. We have a 4.9% unemployment, which is the 6th and best in the nation. Compare that to Illinois across the street, right over the river, that's 10.2. That does all those things that we were just discussing a few seconds ago. We have to be able to make sure that our jobs are there, that we have growth, that there's something to come back to. And we can use this situation to help us talk about how do we improve things, like flipping the classroom to create a better dynamic learning environment. Our students are doing it, they know how to do it, but often the faculty, the teachers have difficulty with using the technology. That's why I support creating a teacher academy to help encourage faculty members to do this, your teachers to do this. We need to flip to a competency-based curriculum, and we need to make sure that there's an infrastructure bill there so that the students have the internet, that they have the resources, the computers, and that the teachers have the skill sets to be able to actually do this. Why is that important? Because that's the way we're going to be learning in tomorrow, and that's how we're going to drive businesses. And these are things I've been doing for the last 20 years every day.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Next question goes to you as well. If elected, what will be the top 3 priorities of your term, and why are they right for Senate District 1, the region, and Missouri?
So the region, right? Missouri, Senate District 1. We need to think bigger than that. We need to be global. We're no longer competing against Illinois and Kansas. We're competing against Argentina. We're competing against Spain. If we want to drive jobs here, it's very important. So we need to do a certain level of things. One, we need to improve our healthcare by creating a constitutional amendment for pre-existing conditions. The second thing we need to do is protect your privacy records for your healthcare. I'm going to give a quick example. I was looking at Broncos yesterday. I was on that Dave Sinclair website looking at the new Broncos. And all of a sudden this morning when I picked up my phone, I got commercials or ads for Broncos. The same thing's happening with your health records. When you go to the hospital, you're being tracked. You need to make sure that when you go see a healthcare worker, that your digital privacy is protected. And then we need to start driving jobs here so they're no longer looking at Austin and Charlotte, but they're looking to come to Missouri by bringing new ideas here. If we can do those things, that's how we create investment. And I gave this lecture at the World Economic Forum. $15 trillion was in that room. Not one person from the Midwest was there. If we want to be engaged in improving our economy. One of the things I want to do is make sure that we're engaged in those markets, bringing investments to this state. We're not doing that right now. We're not doing a very good job, and the whole region's not doing a good job. But it's one of those things that if we do right, will make a difference for our kids and our future grandkids.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Representative Beck, same question. If elected, what will be the top 3 priorities of your term? Why are they right for Senate District 1, the region, and Missouri?
Well, again, when I first started campaigning, those 3 would have been a little bit different, but now I believe the first thing we need to do is look at, and one of the initiatives I'll be looking at is investing in our state's disaster preparedness. We were not prepared for any of this. We did not have an emergency medical stockpile, and we also need to have PPE reserves that we can rotate out to our first responders and our frontline workers. The governor sent out old, ineffective, defective masks to our first responders, and that's just unacceptable. And we need to do better there, and we need to have a plan going forward. Medicaid expansion it would have always been on top of my list. Medicaid expansion needs to happen, needs to be implemented. You know, there's $170 million sitting in the cash operating expense fund, and we can fund this without cutting any other programs for the first year. And it's something we need to do. It will also create thousands and thousands of jobs. It will help reopen some of these rural hospitals so we can take the stress back off of the St. Louis area here. And I think that's very, very important. And also the people that are getting hit the most by this, they'll have an opportunity to be able to have medical insurance, good medical insurance, you know. And then strengthening our recovery, investing in our people is something that we really need to do. And that means greater accessibility to vocational training and community colleges to train Missourians in building the infrastructure of tomorrow's Missouri. You know, providing relief for our small businesses, which hasn't happened very much in this state. That needs to happen also. They've been devastated by this pandemic, and they're the backbone of our economy. I want to address one thing real quick. That 4.9% unemployment rate is fictitious for the fact that over 70,000 people are not looking for work or have been dropped from unemployment. The reason why Illinois is higher is they have better unemployment than we do. People get dropped off here at 20 weeks. If you recall, people were getting unemployment plus $600, then that was taken away. They were getting unemployment plus $300, then that was taken away, and now they're not getting unemployment at all. And they're sitting out there, and our poverty rates are going up, our food insecurity rates are going up. So that 4.9% is not a true number.
Thank you, Representative. And question 4 also goes to you. Many Missourians are out of work due to the pandemic. What do you think needs to be done at the state level to encourage workforce participation and to help businesses reopen? Do you think that the lack of COVID-19 liability protection for businesses is a concern and possibly the reason some businesses have not fully reopened yet?
So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but guess what I'm going to say here? We need to lower the transmission rate of COVID in our state. That starts with a statewide mask mandate. We have no enforcement mechanism putting the burden, and that puts the burden on our businesses to do so, and that's troublesome and frustrating. If our customers and consumers and employees do not feel safe, you'll never get this economy moving. You'll never have full participation. We need to make people feel safe, and we need to do this in a reasonable manner. I'm not suggesting cutting anything down. I'm not suggesting we arrest people for not wearing a mask, but we need to be able to enforce it and actually have people that show an example at the very top. That is something we need to do. You know, businesses and employees, again, need to and deserve to feel safe, and that'll help get this economy moving. As far as reducing liability, you know, it definitely makes sense in our nursing homes and our hospitals for sure. I'm 100% behind that as long as they're following the guidelines. And our businesses need to follow and strictly enforce guidelines by the CDC, and I would be interested in entertaining that. I haven't seen a bill yet. I haven't seen what that looks like, so I would reserve judgment. But I would suspect if businesses, if we cut out bad actors trying to just get through this, I would probably be in favor of something like that for limited liability for sure. But I think that was blown up earlier this year with with our governor and the special session we just went through. I don't know that the House will entertain that before next session. So maybe we'll do it in the upcoming session.
Thank you, Representative. Dr. Lenihan, same question to you. What do you think needs to be done at the state level to encourage workforce participation to help businesses reopen? And do you think the lack of COVID-19 liability protection for businesses is a concern and possibly the reason some businesses haven't fully reopened?
I think it is a concern. And I do think it is one of the reasons why some of the businesses haven't opened. But one of the things I don't want to do is be a backseat driver. In this hyper political world, everyone knows exactly what they should have done. They know exactly what we should have done at that moment in time. No one knew. But we do know what we have to do moving forward. First, we have to make sure that we protect people from unfair lawsuits. A lot of people just don't know what the rules are. And if you don't know what you're expected to be able to do, it's very difficult for you to make a plan to open your business. Second, we need to learn what's actually going on the ground. We hear of nursing homes and drug treatment programs that aren't opening or accepting new patients because they don't want to know, they don't know what the risk is. They'll put a patient in a hotel room for 2 weeks and have them wait it out and then bring them in. But if you're in a drug treatment program, that just isn't going to work. And so they're worried about that liability. I'm not really sure how to handle or what to do with the retail industry or how they're handling it, but I can tell you in the healthcare industry, we're very concerned on how to deal with this and what to do. And if we don't get some type of protection so that we're not held to a standard 4 years from now, what we do today, there's going to be a problem. And the third thing is we need to make sure we provide incentives through tax breaks. So if you go buy a computer so you can work from home, or a camera to watch this video, or if you want to watch Ernie Trachis on your county council meetings, if you go buy those equipment, you should be able to deduct that from your taxes. You should be able to deduct all of that from this year's taxes. We need to ensure that legislation allows people, you, to acquire the equipment necessary to work in today's environment. That's what's necessary. And those are the three things: from preventing unfair lawsuits, learning what's actually going on the ground, and encouraging workforce by allowing us to go get equipment and deducting those purchases from our taxes.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Question 5 goes to you as well. As representatives of the St. Louis business community, we at the Regional Chamber receive constant feedback from our members and investors about regulatory burdens impacting the growth of their businesses. How will you improve the regulatory climate for business, and how will you make Missouri and our region a more attractive place to do business and an easier place to work?
This is really one of the reasons why I'm running, and I'm very excited about this. Every 4 years, we all talk about lower regulation or more regulation, depending on what side you are. We talk about tort reform, but no one ever seems to be doing anything. Drives us crazy because we all get around the table and discuss it. I'm going to give you 3 new ideas that aren't being discussed. How do we create something called an enterprise investment scheme? What that does is it allows people like you to take money that you would have paid in taxes and invest it in a new business, an art business, a music business, a manufacturing business. It doesn't matter, but you get tax release for that money that you invest. That makes you an investor. It makes you an owner in new businesses, and it creates new jobs. It promotes growth. And when we look at the Cortex building, creating all these new incubator jobs, these are a way to do this. Other countries are doing this quite successfully, from England and France and Canada. We can do that here in this state. The second thing we need to do is significantly reduce our tax on research and development and manufacturing. We need to encourage people to start doing research, to develop new ideas, and to start bringing manufacturing back to the state. You can only do that when you're competitive. And we need to give people tax breaks, businesses tax breaks that are going to do that. The third thing is creating opportunity zones. So people will go in and invest in areas of need, in rural Missouri, in urban Missouri. Make sure that they have some incentive to go into these markets and provide assets for people. These are 3 things that aren't being discussed today in our state legislature. It's 3 things that I've been doing my entire life, and 3 things I want to bring to the Missouri legislature so that you can become an investor, create wealth and jobs, and make your life better.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Representative Beck, same question goes to you. How will you improve the regulatory climate for business, and how will you make Missouri and our region a more attractive place to do business and an easier place to work?
So I've been a member of the Afton Chamber of Commerce for 6 years, and many problems fellow members encounter is navigating local and county ordinances and licensing requirements. But my belief is the state should not encroach on local governments, and I respect local control. That being said, I think that a lot of these conversations need to be had on the local level to get everybody in order and maybe streamline these regulations. But as elected officials, we can help our small businesses navigate the myriad of regulations constituents face in opening a business and the other things that they face. This is something I've done as a state rep, and I will continue to do as a state senator. And as ranking member of workforce development, economic development, I can tell you there is no shortage of issues to address in sustaining and growing our workforce and economy. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. That's very obvious. And we need to do that with a dedicated tax. It needs to be a dedicated tax that they know will be there, whether it's a 2-cent gas tax or possibly raising the tax on semi trucks. But it needs to be a dedicated tax. We cannot take that out of our general revenue. That is a fool's errand to do that, and it's not consistent. It's up to the legislature at that point. We need a highly trained workforce and people to be able to attain that. That needs to happen. We need quality pre-K through 12 everywhere in the state. We need to have our kids be able to get that first-class education. We need affordable, attainable higher education, and not just 4-year colleges, but 2-year colleges and vocational schools. But what is glaringly true in our state makes the news. We make the news for all the wrong reasons. Again, we're a CDC red zone. We haven't done the proper things. We haven't learned from our mistakes from 7 months ago. So I think if you never learn, it's something that we suppose we didn't know about. I think that's troublesome. We have some of the loosest gun laws in the nation. We are the only state in the nation without a statewide PDMP. And we have some of the most restrictive laws on reproductive rights. We need to change the image of our state to attract and retain talent that starts with changing the dialogue in Jefferson City.
Thank you, Representative. And question 6 goes to you. Our region has once again been traumatized by systemic racism and the realization of economic inequities in our region. So what, if anything, do you think the state can do to help create more opportunities for groups that have been marginalized by the current system? Do you think police reform should be a part of the conversation? And what specifically would you support as the legislature reconvenes in 2021? So
let me start off by saying what happened to George Floyd was criminal, and the rest of the nation has seen that, and that was a horrible thing to happen. And I also want to clear the record up right here and now, because there's been a lot of misunderstanding out there. I do not support defunding the police. I know that's been thrown at me. I've been a solid supporter of our first responders. But I like to look at issues that face policing much as the same as the burden that we place on our teachers. We ask our teachers to be so much more than the job they signed up for. We ask them to be parents. We ask them to be social workers, provide so many additional services for our children. I look at it the same way. That's what we're doing with our police also. We're asking them to be able to, again, social workers, and deal with mental health issues. So I think what we need to do as far as reforming police goes is give them more resources to be able to do their job. We should have social workers. We should have mental health professionals to help them deal with things so they can stick to the business of protecting and serving us as their sworn oath is to do. And I think that would go a long way in a lot of these areas. Yeah, we have racial systemic racism throughout this country, and police department is no different. It's no different than any other area that we live in. It's no different than even in construction trades and things of that nature. But there are real issues that we need to address, and everyone should be at that table, that reflects all communities, including people of color, police, clergy, and local leaders. Everybody needs to be in the same room. I am a person that likes to have people talk and have conversation and dialogue and then create policy. We can solve a lot of our region and state's inequities by investing in our underserved communities. That means incentivizing grocery stores to return to our food deserts, not only urban but rural. We need neighborhood beautification will go a long way for folks feeling different about themselves. We need tech and vocational training that graduate their students with degrees and know how that translates to good paying jobs. It actually does good paying jobs, not the promise of a good paying job. Jobs retained in community to the people that live there in these underserved communities. And we need to also regulate opportunist lending and opportunist education.
Thank you, Representative. And Dr. Lenihan, same question to you, sir. What, if anything, do you think the state can do to help create more opportunities for groups that have been marginalized by the current system? And do you think police reform should be a part of the conversation? And what specifically would you support as the legislature reconvenes in 2021?
Police reform, of course. We can always do better. We need to increase our training with our police officers, provide them with the resources that they need, and how to deal with mental health issues, how to de-escalate, and provide body cameras to people, to the police. But this requires an investment, not a defunding mechanism to the police. We should expect our political leaders to be out there supporting the police aggressively and not getting our pictures taken with individuals who are notoriously known for defunding or abolishing the police. Eventually, this news will settle down. And we're going to go back to the same old, what do we do? What do we not do? We have a choice right now on how to fix this problem. And it's something I've been active with for the last 20 years, from Harlem to North Miami to Puerto Rico to what I'm doing now in North St. Louis. If we really want to end racism and abolish poverty, we need to create opportunities. We need to give people jobs. We need to give them high-paying, lifelong jobs. This is what I've been doing all the time, from creating new universities to providing new doctors to creating new health systems in these locations. This is just not politics for me. Win or lose, I'm doing this tomorrow. I'm doing this every day of my life because it's important for our country. And it's important for all of us that we have leaders that are going to go into these communities, not just talk about it, but actually put the boots on and go into these communities and provide help and help show how we make those jobs available to our citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Question 7 also goes to you. The past few election cycles have been riddled with divisiveness and vitriol. As you've seen with the U.S. Chamber, the interests of business no longer hitch their wagon to one political party. Instead, the business community is throwing their support behind a bipartisan slate of pro-business candidates and elected leaders who are, focused on growing business in our workforce. So the question is, how have you in your career reached out to members from the opposite party or opposite thinking to get things accomplished? And how will you in the future work to bridge the partisan divide?
I've been bridging the partisan divide my whole life. We need to actually start building things where people need them. We have enough healthcare in Ladue. My philosophy is very different than a lot of people. We need to go into these communities where resources are needed, where there's a shortage of healthcare, where there's a shortage of education, where there's a shortage of jobs. And we need to provide the resources and show that there's another choice, that you can become a doctor, that you can become a lawyer, that you can use education to make yourself better. Second, I'm building a hospital in the North Side. That's not really a typical Republican hotbed if you're not sure, if you don't know. And to be honest, we're able to get support from across the parties, from union leaders to Democrats in the city, to local business leaders, because they recognize how important it is to promote equality and create jobs. And I've done this several places. We did it in Harlem, done it in Puerto Rico, and now we're doing it in North St. Louis. And the reason this is important is each one of these universities, each one of these medical schools, each one of these education institutions generate roughly about $500 million per annum in economic activity. That goes straight into the community. As you train more doctors, that also improves the health outcomes of that region. Takes time, but you have to start taking that first step. And every doctor you graduate that stays into a community of need generates over $2 million of economic activity for that area. Personally, over the course of my career, I've generated over $3.5 billion in economic activity and created over 2,000 new jobs indirectly and over 4,000 doctors and healthcare workers to go into these areas. That's how I've shown we've been doing it. I'm the guy that puts the boots on and goes into these areas and tries to help.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Representative Beck, same question to you, sir. How have you in your career reached out to members from the opposite party or opposite thinking to get things accomplished? And how will you in the future work to bridge the partisan divide?
So in order to get things done, and if you're in the minority party, you have to build relationships and find compromise across the aisle, or it just doesn't happen. Before I was a state rep, I worked with people from all walks of life to improve the quality of education that the Afton School District provides. And it's now one of the top performing districts in our state. And that shows my ability to be able to talk to folks that don't necessarily think like I do. And what we did there was we said, hey, we're going to have a primary purpose. And our primary purpose is that our kids get an education that's second to none. And we do that within our budget. And we were very, very successful at that. And they are continuing those policies today. In 2017 was a tumultuous time for me. We had right to work going through. I was standing up on the floor 7 days in, very vocal against right to work. And also paycheck deception and all the attacks on workers that were going on by the Republican Party in the legislature. And that very next year, I decided I wanted to try to, a constituent of mine gave me an idea for a bill and wanted to name a part of Gravely Road after fallen officer Blake Snyder. And I went to the Speaker of the House at that time, Todd Richardson, and said, Mr. Speaker, can we do something with this? And he helped me get that done. And that bill it flew through committees. It went unanimously through the House, and that doesn't happen often. And it went unanimously through the Senate. It had a couple hiccups, but it ended up going unanimously through the Senate. And that bill still had my name on it. Not that that's important, but that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen very often in that building. And you can ask my colleagues about that. I've had numerous amendments and bills, especially when we were concentrating on workforce development 2 sessions ago. There's a lot of my amendments were put into those. I was a part of those discussions. I was the only Democrat that was sitting at the governor's table when we were talking about workforce development and we were having a meeting on that. I was the only one, and I was there, and my voice was heard in a lot of those bills that came through that committee, and I had my handprints on that. Do I take credit? No, but those things happen, and I'm just trying to explain that's how you're successful. This year, even though it was a COVID shortened session, the JB Gold Memorial, I managed to be able to get that after some controversy, able to get that as one of the official Gold Star memorials in this state. It doesn't sound like a lot to a lot of folks, but it does make a big difference to people, their families that have lost their loved ones in war, and they spent their time and effort to build that Golden Star Memorial. And if you haven't seen it, please go by and check it out. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And actually, question 8, our final question, goes to you to start. The regional chamber has a few core priorities in economic development, workforce development, and transportation and infrastructure. Within these buckets, what area do you think needs specific attention, and how would you develop those areas through state or local action? And if elected, will you support these 3 chamber priorities?
And I do support those chamber priorities. And as ranking member of economic development and workforce development committees, I understand the need to ensure Missourians are prepared for completing in the global economy. I understand that. I understood that at the Afton School District, and I understand that here. In order for us to compete on a global scale, we need to have the groundwork laid. And that means better roads and bridges and transportation all across Missouri. We need to have that happen. Our economic engine in Missouri is St. Louis County, which accounts for over 1/3 of our economy. And if you look at us regionally, it's well over 50% of the entire state economy is right here. That's the engine. A lot of our resources go out to Jefferson City and they don't come back this way. I would love to see us bring more of those resources back here to be able to fix our infrastructure, our ports, our rails, we're so perfectly centered here. We could be a powerhouse in St. Louis. And I would like to see more of that money come back here into our transportation, other things in the area to help our businesses out, and also bring that training for our workforce here to make our businesses able to succeed and compete on a global economy. One of the things we look at is our state has the lowest gas tax in the nation, and we need to change that. We need to look at how to do that and do it in a way. If we had the political will, we could do it at the state legislature. We can raise that by 2 cents a gallon per year without going to the voters. If we had the political will to do that, we could also raise that money on semi trucks. I think that's the way to go. Again, a dedicated tax is the only way we can do this. We can't continue borrowing money like we did last time and taking money out of general revenue. That hurts everything else in this country, in our state, excuse me. Our state has an image problem that desperately needs to turn around. So in order to attract and retain our workforce, we need to work on all those things that I had mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Representative. And Dr. Lenihan, same final question to you. The regional chamber has a few core priorities in economic development, workforce development, and transportation and infrastructure. And within these buckets, what area do you think needs specific attention? And how would you develop those areas through state or local action? And if elected, will you support these 3 top chamber priorities?
Of course, I'll support them because economic development is what I've been doing for a long time now. Remember, we're not competing against Illinois and Kansas anymore. We're competing in a global market, and we need to be thinking like that. Economic development involves new ideas. in creating enterprise investment schemes so that you can be an investor and own a business. Even if you only make $20,000 a year, you can still become part of that entrepreneurial spirit. We need to create opportunity zones where people will invest in those areas. And we need to promote tax deferment for research and development and pharmaceutical manufacturing to bring those jobs back from China. They're going to be looking for a place to land. Let's have them land here. From workforce development, let's think of some new ideas. Instead of looking at people after college, let's look at how we bring workforce development in K through 12. Teach the kids how to code. Maybe show them how to use robotics or follow GPS if you're in a farming community so that you can check on your crops. California, New York, Florida, they already do these workforce developments in K through 12. We need to be thinking of new ideas. And with respect to transportation, yes, everyone knows roads, but there's also another part. The world population is going to double in the next 50 years, which means that the food quantity is going to need to double in the next 50 years. And most of that goes down through our district on the Mississippi. We need to invest in our port infrastructure to make sure that we're a world leader in agriculture and providing food to feed the nation. You do these three things, and that's how you change the perception of the state to make people want to invest, knowing that we have the tax system for it, that we have the new education to help them train their children, and that we have the infrastructure on how to feed the world.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan. Really appreciate your responses this morning. And I also want to open it up to you for a 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this event and endorsing me during the election of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. I believe it's time for the people to elect individuals that know how to get things done, that will have a vision and a plan more than I will just fight for you. These are complex topics, and it's very easy just to say one-off statements, but you have to know the intricacies of healthcare and education and how those work to create jobs. Because even the slightest mistake could be hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue and taxes for the state. Healthcare represents a significant part of our daily life. We need to make sure that we promote and ensure that those with pre-existing conditions are not discriminated against, and that we provide the resources to protect your privacy. But more importantly, and I think this goes to the chamber, we need to elect people that have new ideas, that are promoting things that we haven't thought of before. From a teacher academy to help teachers learn new technologies, healthcare privacy records, let us be the leader in that. A constitutional amendment that protects pre-existing conditions, and enterprise investment schemes to let you be an investor, and workforce development in early age. Those are 5 things I've talked about that are not being discussed anywhere in the state. No one running for any of these offices are discussing that. These are new ideas that we can bring to the legislator instead of rehashing all the old stuff of whether or not we do this or that. And I'm Dr. Dave Lenihan, running for the state Senate, and I'd really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lenihan, for being with us this morning, and a special thank you to your professional staff for helping organize this forum. Really appreciate it. Now, I'll turn it over to Representative Beck for his closing remarks. Representative, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you again, Austin and Chamber. Thank you for having me here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to voters. I'll put it simply. I again was born and raised in South County. I've been here my entire life. I've been invested in this community. I've done community service here. I've been here my entire life. I love the community has done so much for my family that's the only reason why I'm involved in this. My life would be much easier if I wasn't doing this, but I take this very, very, very seriously. I look out as a job of a senator, again, as somebody that is responsible to everyone. And I look at them as my employer, not me as some sort of dictator. I will be a leader on issues, and I have been, and I will, and I have a track record of getting things done. A lot of things were mentioned today, and there's a lot of good things that have already been going on in our public schools. There is robotics. There is all these other things going on right now. There's STEM and a lot of different things going on in our public schools, especially in the 1st Senate District. That's for sure. And we don't need to micromanage these folks. We need to give them the resources to be able to carry out their mission. I truly believe that that's where I'm at. We need to let the schools the teachers be able to teach, and we need to not micromanage from the state level. We do need to give them the resources, however, and that's very important. You know, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to unemployment, when it comes to all these things, I understand that. I understand that because I live it. I am close to the people of this district. If I sat down at the table, anybody that lives in, you know, my neighbor is 30 feet away from me. That's how close I am to the people that are around me. I don't live in some big mansion. I don't, you know, and I know what the people are going through right now. I understand what it's about to worry about your health care. I understand that the Republicans are trying to get rid of the ACA right now, which gets rid of pre-existing conditions. We already have that protection, but they're trying to get rid of it. So those are concerns. I will do the best I can. I would really, really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Really appreciate that, Representative, for your remarks and being with us this morning. And I want to thank both of our candidates, you know, for being with us and your civility this morning. You know, our members, I believe, got a good, you know, taste of what this race is all about. And we appreciate both of you making your case here with us today. And with that, I'll conclude today's candidate forum. As you may know, this is our third forum this year. You can view all of our forums on our YouTube channel by simply searching St. Louis Regional Chamber. If you have any questions about our forums, please visit our website at stlregionalchamber.com or contact Riley Nix at rnix@stlregionalchamber.com. With that, this meeting is adjourned.